How are we doing, friends?
We're good?
Oh, we're good. Awesome. Okay.
That's great. So now, I'd like to invite you to return perhaps to this moment of worship and this moment of prayer. We actually turn forward a little bit in the prayer book, page 337, perhaps to bring us back to this moment of togetherness, to continue and to not worry too much about the technical issues that are here, but rather to think about what we need on this day of Shabbat. At the top of 337, we offer these words together as a community. Please join one another. Prayer is not purely an act. All things pray and all things pour forth their souls. The heavens pray, the earth prays, every creature and every living thing. In all life there is longing. Creation is itself but a longing, a kind of prayer to the Almighty. What are the clouds, the rising and setting of the sun, the soft radiance of the moon, and the gentleness of the night? What are the flashes of the human mind and the storms of the human heart? They are all prayers, the wordless outpouring of boundless longing for God. Shabbat evening worship really begins with further music and prayer with Kabbalat Shabbat as our way of welcoming this day and welcoming one another. We begin on page 130 in the prayer book with the Chut Nirana. Continuing on page 138.
So some of you might recall from previous Shabbatot when we've honored Rabbi Swarsensky that this Shabbat also happens to be when some might honor the yahrzeit of the poet Leonard Cohen. Leonard Cohen's famous Hallelujah speaks about a kind of praise that pours out of us even when things might be challenging or traumatic. He wrote the lyric, and even when it all went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord of Song with nothing on my tongue but hallelujah. He wrote about a cold and broken hallelujah. Praise in spite of destruction or brokenness. A hallelujah anyway, perhaps, which is exactly what we find in the tone-wise in the verses of Lecha Dodi written by Jews who had experienced their own sense of destruction, and who had to find a way, in spite of that, to remain in relationship with God and to make room in themselves for gratitude and praise. So we're going to offer these words from Lecha Dodi using Leonard Cohen's melody, teaching us this important lesson of our tradition and our history that destruction is never the end of the story. We'll join together on page 138 Page 138, we find those verses of Lecha Dodi. We'll offer verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And when we arrive to verse 9, we'll rise to receive Shabbat's sacred presence.
God.
page 140, we also conclude our Kabbalat Shabbat with Mizmor Shir, a song that makes it clear that our goodness and our righteousness is something that we offer to the world, we offer to ourselves, that is to our community, but also offering it to our own each individual self, that we have the goodness inside to make it clear that we can do better things in the world and we do better things for ourselves. 140, Mizmor Shir.
Mizmor Shir Leyom HaShabbat.
Worship is many things. Worship is one way to draw close to God as we share our most personal thoughts with the divine. Worship connects us with one another in this community of joy, sorrow, expectation, or celebration. Worship serves as a moral or spiritual compass. Prayer helps and inspires us to be good people. Worship connects us to our roots. We feel secure that we are part of a people with history, with values, with principles, and with traditions. May all of our lives indeed be blessed. May our prayers be offered for the sake of unity and community. We offer Baruch Hu on page 146, and as is traditional, we rise when we say the words of Baruch Hu, but with our words of introduction and words of blessing that we here in this community tonight learn or are learning. We rise whenever that spirit strikes you at the moment prior to Baruch Hu. Whenever you feel the spirit, whenever you feel that it is important, then we rise.
And if you need those English words, they're on again, page 5 in the supplement.
On page 149 in the prayer book, we read together at the top. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day and to night. As heaven expands to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God,
from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim.
Amen. Page 150 at the top. Continue at the top of page 154.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha Hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibartam b'shivtecha b'beitecha, u'v'lechtecha v'derech, u'shofbecha u'v'kumecha, u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha, והיו לטוטפות עין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני Adonai Elohechem. אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Every day we engage in the struggle for freedom, whether for our own liberties or those of a people who are oppressed in many parts of the world. As we recall now in Micha Mocha the striving of Moses and the Israelite people to be free, we recognize too the actions and striving of the veterans of the people who are serving in our fighting forces in this country. This day, November 11th, is Veterans Day, and there are veterans in this congregation tonight. There are veterans who live in our memory, whose service we remember and honor. And we always, of course, pray that fighting units will be used as only a last resort. But we also commend those who put themselves in places of preparation for those occurrences to happen. We give thanks for their service, whether real service or their intended service, for the hardships they may have faced, their contributions to our nation's welfare. We offer then Micha Mocha as a celebration of our continual search for liberty and human dignity. Page 158, Micha Mocha.
חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
We continue with Hashkivenu, this prayer for the evening, time of gaining strength to face new realities tomorrow. Page 160.
Some of you may have noticed some slightly less familiar tunes this evening. Some of them, maybe they are familiar to you. I couldn't say for sure. If you look in the Shabbat program, you'll notice that I put bios for a lot of the composers. I wanted to take a moment, especially given a conversation we're going to be having later, to highlight the contributions of female Jewish songwriters and composers, and the Torah that they've shared with us through the melodies that they offer us. I believe that all music in worship can be midrash, can be sacred learning as well as sacred prayer. So this is one of Debbie Friedman's slightly maybe less known tunes, her setting of Hashkivenu. You can listen for a moment, and then if you feel comfortable joining in at any point, you're welcome to, of course. Ushmor tzeitenu uvoenu lechayim uleshalom me'ata ve'ad olam me'ata ve'ad olam me'ata ve'ad olam Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, V'ha'amideinu shomreinu lechaim, Uferos aleinu sukat shelomecha, Me'ata ve'ad olam, Me'ata ve'ad olam, Me'ata ve'ad olam. Shmor tzeitzenu u'voteinu lechaim leShalom. Me'ata ve'ad olam, Me'ata ve'ad olam, Me'ata ve'ad olam. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, V'ha'amideinu shomreinu lechaim, Uferos aleinu sukat shlomecha, Me'ata ve'ad olam, Me'ata ve'ad olam, Me'ata ve'ad olam. Shmor tzeitzenu u'voteinu lechaim leShalom. Me'ata ve'ad olam, 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 Me'ata Baruch atah Adonai, Borei Sukat Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
Amen. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel once reminded us that one who wants to enter the holiness of this day must first say farewell to manual work and learn to understand that the world has already been created and will survive without the help of humanity. How nice it is to feel essential, and how restful it feels to be less important than the workings of the world which are beyond our control. True prayer and the body and mind's rest that emanates from it is something after which we strive, and rarely we feel we achieve it. Yet that is what these moments of tefillah, of worship, are all about. That's what they're intended to do for us. We mine the truth of the words of our tradition. We find solace in the silence of the soul. We progress by virtue of the strength we renew in ourselves. May our worship this night and always give us inner hope and outer peace to shape the world as we need to shape the world in the vision of our tradition. We begin tefillah on page 164, and we invite the community to rise.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufia b'tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
166.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham
שרים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה.
Page 168.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם מכלכל חיים בחסד מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל.
Amen. Page 170.
אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Amen. Please be seated. We now offer time for that silent prayer that I referred to a few moments ago, that moment when we escape from the words, from the limitations of the prayer book, and escape into the limitless realms of our own hearts and minds that take us to where we need to be. Shabbat Shalom. Tonight we observe the second of our numerous events in memory of Rabbi Manfred Swarsensky. And tonight it is our pleasure and privilege to welcome to the Bima Rabbi Paula Jane Winnig. Rabbi Paula Jane Winnig is the current Associate Director of Consulting and Transition Management for the Union of Reformed Judaism. She comes to us tonight in her role as a rabbi in Israel, the second, again, of our local women rabbis to speak to our community as part of this Manfred Swarsensky Memorial Weekend. Rabbi Winnig has previously served as interim rabbi for congregations in Youngstown, Ohio, and Fort Wayne, Indiana, and executive director of the Jewish Federation of Madison, Wisconsin, as executive director of the Bureau of Jewish Education in Indianapolis from 2011 to 2017. Rabbi Winnig has also served congregations in Roslyn, Queens, and Lawrence, New York, after receiving her ordination from Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion in 1986. Rabbi Winnig was the student rabbi at the Vista Del Mar Center in Los Angeles and Congregation Beth Shalom in Auckland, New Zealand. In addition, Rabbi Winnig led High Holy Day worship for Congregation Adat Israel in Guatemala City and served as a prison chaplain for New York State in both the women's maximum and medium security prison in Bedford Hills. Rabbi Winnig was an adjunct lecturer in Biblical Hebrew at the Christian Theological Seminary in Indianapolis and the University of Auckland, New Zealand. Rabbi Winnig received her MBA from the State University of New York, her Master of Arts of Hebrew Letters from Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion, and her bachelor's degree with honors in political science from the University of Wisconsin. She was awarded an honorary doctorate of divinity in May 2011 from the Hebrew Union College, and she was a visiting graduate student in the Hebrew University in Jerusalem in the Department of Talmud. In 2010, Rabbi Winnig founded Torah Threads, Knitting the Threads of Torah into the Fabric of Our Lives, a podcast currently on hiatus, celebrating her love of Torah, fiber arts, and sustainable living. Rabbi Winnig helped found and develop Sulam Lee, the religious school for Jewish children with special needs, serving the Five Towns community of Long Island. Rabbi Winnig has published many articles in both print and online media, including a chapter in the book, The Woman's Haftarah Commentary, and the forthcoming book, Prophetic Voices. Rabbi Winnig has appeared in many television programs and was a featured participant in the weekly cable television program, Father Tom and Friends, for 3 years. Rabbi Winnig is the past co-chair of the Indiana Board of Rabbis and served similar roles in the New York area rabbinic and interfaith organizations. In 2015, Rabbi Winnig was named Woman of the Year by Unite magazine for her advocacy for equal rights for LGBTQ+ individuals in Indiana. In 2020, she received the Goldie Dubois Award for service to the Fort Wayne Jewish community. She's the proud mother of 2 adult sons, Carmi and Shai, and mother-in-law to Kristen. Rabbi Winnig is also a fiber artist, cook, and bicyclist. I will let her offer her title for her remarks tonight, but I ask you to welcome her to our Bima, Rabbi Paula Jane Winnig.
Saying I'm a cyclist on the day Rabbi Beich comes back from having ridden 280 miles?
No, just 200.
Just 200 miles throughout Israel, including the hills of Israel, is quite something I'll have to take off my resume next time. I want to take one moment of personal privilege, since I've got the microphone and nobody can blame me now for services running too long because of the technical difficulties we had at the beginning. To just tell you one quick story about Rabbi Swarsensky. I met Rabbi Swarsensky when I was about 14 years old. I was here in Madison for a BBYO convention, for what was the Badger Council of BBYO. Actually, it was, I think, formed here at that convention when we realized, those of us who lived in the small towns or every town outside of Milwaukee, Jews of Wisconsin, that we needed to just come together in one BBYO region. And Rabbi Swarsensky spoke to us at that convention. And I remember sitting with him, and unfortunately, I am ashamed to say I don't remember what he was talking about. But I do remember Rabbi Swarsensky looking at me. And he kept looking at me. And I thought that was so strange. Why was this rabbi kind of looking around the room talking, and you could feel him focusing back on me? And at the end of the talk, when everybody was leaving, he kind of beckoned to me. And he said to me, "How do I know you? I know you." And I said, "Rabbi Swarsensky, I'm really sorry. I don't think I've ever met you before." He goes, "No, I know you." He says, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Wausau, Wisconsin." He said, "Wausau. I know somebody from Wausau. I knew somebody, Marion Marco from Wausau. Marion Marco from Wausau was my mother." And the reason he looked at me and remembered me was because my mother had worked for him when she was a college student here in Madison. She had been one of his drivers at the time. And all those years later, because of his connection to my mother, he remembered me. So I've always had a very fond place in my heart, knowing the generations of my family that were connected to Rabbi Swarsensky. Then I met Gerald as well when I was a student at Madison and got to know another part of the Swarsensky family. And then again, when I was here in Madison as a student, I also had the privilege of working for Larry Cohn and Rabbi Ken Roseman of blessed memory, and Helen Roseman as well, who all played a very important role in helping make my entry into the world of the rabbinate just a little bit easier, knowing I had their backing and support along the way. So, I hadn't actually thought about a title for my sermon until Rabbi Beich asked me earlier this week. And so I came up with this title, and hopefully you'll get the meaning of it by the time you hear the rest of the sermon. So this sermon is called Kierkegaard, Revolution, and the Ice Cream Melting on the Floor. The philosopher Kierkegaard said, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forward." He wrote that in 1843. It was true then and is still true today. But oh, it makes me feel so very old to be looking backwards over the 50 years since Rabbi Sally Presand's ordination. I am so honored to represent this history, and especially tonight representing the other 7 women rabbis who currently live in Madison. As we have all learned over the years, all politics is personal, and so it turns out is history. So please allow me to be a bit personal as we look at this amazing milestone in Jewish life. In 1978, I was just 19 years old, an undergrad here at the University of Wisconsin, studying political science and political theory, when I decided I wanted to become a rabbi. I was so young and naive and so outside of the traditional framework of Jewish life that I had no idea how one became a rabbi. But what I did know was that White Library had a whole room of college catalogs. So I took myself up there to the reading room, looked up Rabbi and a Guide to Graduate Schools, and found out about Hebrew Union College, the Jewish Theological Seminary, and the Reconstructionist Rabbinical School. And then my journey began. There was so much I didn't know then. But I knew one thing. I knew that with the right education, I could teach and lead the Jewish community. I joked that I came to school here in Madison to save the world, and then I decided that was such a big job, I would start by focusing on the Jewish community first. I will say I've come to realize the rest of the world might have been easier. In 1978, I had never met a woman rabbi. Not surprising, since only 7 women had been ordained at that point. When I entered HUC in 1980, there were only 23 women ordained. But my class had 13 women in it. By the time I was ordained in 1986, over 100 women had been ordained. Today, HUC has ordained 860 women, 4 more having joined us just this week with their ordination in Jerusalem. I didn't know when I entered HUC that I was going to have this dual title, that as woman rabbi. I thought I was just going to become a rabbi. I had assumed most feminist battles had already been won, or would be shortly. After all, my mother, Marion, had become the first woman on the Wisconsin State Parole Board in 1974. I figured these milestones would all be finished long before I entered the working world. However, I was oh so very wrong. I learned quickly that I would, especially at the beginning of my time in school and immediately in the years after my ordination, I would see how many people related to me both positively and negatively by my gender identity instead of, or in addition to, my earned rabbinic title. A story. In my second year of rabbinical school, I was chosen to be the rabbinic intern at a residential treatment facility for children ages 5 to 18 in Los Angeles. I was going to be the first female student rabbi, though they had been served by rabbinical students for over 20 years at that point. On my first day on the job, the social worker who supervised the religious programming toured me around the facility to introduce me to the other social workers, psychologists, and psychiatrists who worked with children. There were many bewildered faces as this young person of the female variety was introduced to them. And then it happened. We were sitting in an office when one of the other senior staff members walked by, having grabbed a treat of an ice cream cone with the young clients. My supervisors called out to him to come meet the new student rabbi. And when he was introduced to me and told that I was the new student rabbi, his eyes expanded, his face got flushed as he realized who I was, and then in his shock, he flipped his ice cream cone, and the ice cream laid there melting and puddling at his feet. The very sight and sound of me being the new student rabbi had him losing his ice cream all over the floor. The ice cream melting on the floor has become a sight that has remained in my mind's eye every time I have one of those "it could only happen to a woman" moments in my life. I have seen that ice cream puddling on the floor too many times to count. The Babcock ice cream tanks couldn't hold all the piles of melting ice cream I have seen since then. I soon learned that to some people, all women rabbis behaved alike and looked alike. This came to my knowledge when I had an older woman who was my congregant several months after I first met her, and after she came weekly to our regular Torah study minyan, come up to me and say, "I owe you an apology, and you don't know it." I stood there trying to imagine what could she possibly need to apologize to me for, as we had only had wonderful conversations and connections. And she said to me, "I had decided I didn't like you because I once met a female rabbi and I didn't like her. So I assumed all women rabbis were the same and I wouldn't like you." She assumed all women rabbis were exactly the same. Fortunately, she learned to change her mind and to see the world differently. Then there were the phone calls, the people who assumed I was the secretary or the receptionist, even when I was the one calling someone's office and saying, "This is Rabbi Winnig, and I'm calling for Rabbi," or whomever it was I was calling. They would hold on and say, "Well, when are you going to get the rabbi on the phone?" I said, "I am the rabbi on the phone." They said, "No, when are you getting the rabbi on the phone?" And one of my favorite experiences early on in my rabbinate, attending professional rabbinic organizational meetings and being assumed by people, if I raised my hand to ask a question, that I was the Rebbitzin of whichever male was seated on either side of me. I always wondered, did they really think I was going to marry one of those two? I was the first female rabbi to deliver a sermon at the New York Board of Rabbis annual sermon seminar. I was the first female to be president of the New York Association of Reform Rabbis. And on and on. There were so many firsts. There was a lot of pressure because of those firsts to not only be good, but to be great, to be the best representative of female rabbis I could be, because I felt if I failed in any way, I would harm the next woman's chance of success. And oh, the puddles and puddles of melting ice cream I would see when I heard comments like these: "Can I kiss you? I've never had a woman rabbi before." Or, "You're my first." And so many worse come-ons. I was frequently asked, "What's it like to be a woman rabbi?" I would respond, "Since I have never been a non-woman rabbi, I don't have much to compare it to." And a number of times I was asked, "What do you call a rabbi's husband?" So many stories, so little time, and so many reasons to just forget them. So let's jump ahead. In this city alone today, we have 7 female rabbis. 7 female rabbis, each different and unique, each representing different generations and experiences. It is so exciting for me to see how far we've come, but there is still a long road ahead. Now, 42 years since I entered rabbinical school, 50 years since Rabbi Presant's ordination, the floor is still covered with piles and piles of melting ice cream cones. As women clergy members, non-binary, transgender, gay, and lesbian rabbis, rabbis with visible and invisible disabilities still face discrimination, assumptions, and barriers about their multiple identities. Implicit bias is alive and well and still causing great harm around us. And equal pay for women rabbis, for transgender, gay, lesbian, non-binary rabbis is still a dream we have yet to achieve. We're doing better, but we're still a long way from parity in salaries throughout the movement. I've learned to honor and embrace those things about being a woman, especially an early woman in the rabbinate that we celebrate tonight. I can see with pride and joy how privileged I have been to be part of a transformation that has truly helped change the world. Rabbi Laura Geller, the third woman ordained by HUC, spoke early on about how she realized that her very presence as a rabbi in the community helped people feel God's presence in a different way. Rather than being a remote, hierarchical, distant old man image of God, people were beginning to feel God in a closer, warmer, more approachable way because she was the one talking about God. Women rabbis have helped young girls and boys see that the world was truly open to them to express their Jewish souls the way they chose. The Women's Rabbinical Network was the group in the late 1980s that brought the petition to the CCAR to admit openly gay, lesbian, transgender rabbis to the Central Conference of American Rabbis and to the Hebrew Union College. We women rabbis knew that we could not continue to teach and preach about having an open and accessible community when so many others were still left in the margins. Rabbi Present's ordination in 1972 helped the reform movement also become conscious that it was time to actively and insightfully put our theories of equality into practice. We needed to make our liturgy and theology gender neutral. We needed to open up our boards of trustees to being led by women as well as men in all roles. We needed to make certain that Jews of color were welcomed and that people would no longer feel othered if they walked into a synagogue. We needed to create synagogues that no longer were filled with decorous, quiet worship. We needed to dance and sing and make worship participatory and not just a grand performance. We needed ceremonies to welcome baby girls in the same way we welcome baby boys to the covenant. We needed to have new interpretations of older practices, and we needed new voices to look at and teach our sacred texts. We needed to empower people to express themselves Jewishly in ways that were authentic to them. For yes, decriers of women's power and advancement would scorn, well, it must not be too hard or too important if women can do it. And while that was meant to be a takedown of women, instead, seeing women gain access to power made other people see that they too could gain access to power and then learn to use their power differently. Much of Judaism has become more collaborative, more accessible, and more vibrant than it was before 1972. When I was an HUC student, we had no women rabbis on our faculty. I had no role models who were female to show me the way. Fortunately, today, that is no longer the case. We now have at least 1,500 Reform, Reconstructionist, conservative, and even Orthodox women rabbis. But we did not do this alone. We had many male allies along the way who saw the ways that they too could be changed and grow from the infusion of spirit and vision that came by adding new lenses, female lenses, with which to see the world. This week, our Torah portion tells the story of Abraham's welcome to the 3 strangers who came wandering by. Those 3 strangers, we find out, are messengers of God, bringing to Abraham and Sarah the news that they would soon give birth to Isaac. Just imagine if rather than being welcoming, they had said, sorry, you don't look like the image an angel should have. Or your voice is the wrong register to be our leader. Or, some people will think you are just showing off. You can't possibly be a real angel. Would our Jewish enterprise have ended then and there with no offspring to multiply like the sands on the shores of the seas and the stars of the heaven? How many voices of capable, talented people were lost before 1972 because we didn't recognize them as possibly being authentic? How many were lost through the other many restrictions that were placed in our world before radical acceptance became our norm? So it turns out that when I entered on my journey to become a rabbi, I also got to go in my own way the path of becoming a revolutionary. Perhaps even the revolutionary I always wanted to be when I decided I wanted to be the one to try to save the world. Emma Goldman, however, is the one who said it best. If I can't dance, I don't want to be in your revolution. Well, I can say that we've been able to do a lot of dancing these past 50 years. In the past 50 years, we've been able to dance our way through teaching and preaching, setting examples, opening doors, keeping them open for others so that they too could dance through the decades to reach this milestone anniversary. But most importantly, over these past 42 years for me, since I entered rabbinical school, and 50 years as part of this enterprise of women rabbis, we've been able to help people find their voices and their places in Judaism, in a Judaism that is meaningful, modern, and open to them all. It has been all that I imagined and more. That ice cream still puddles on the floor every now and then, but more visible to me than those puddles of ice cream are the voices of those who have also been empowered to live authentic, meaningful, joyous Jewish lives. To paraphrase Alana Arian, I and all of my sister rabbis have given of ourselves, used our hearts to take stands, to fight for the truth, to stand up for what is right, and to be the light and the voices that have indeed helped change our world. May we continue to bless the world by hearing all of the beautiful voices it contains and make up a chorus that sings out loud and proud, and someday together, may we hear the song that brings our world to a time of peace, unity, love, and security for all. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I will give of myself.
I will give of myself.
I will reach out my hand.
I will reach out my hand.
I will use this heart I've given
to
She'asanu, She'asanu, B'Tselem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, melech haolam she'asanu, she'asanu, b'tselem Elohim. I have a voice, my voice is powerful, my voice can change the world. I have a voice, my voice is powerful, my voice can change the world. Change the world. I will fight for the truth. I will fight for the truth. I'll stand up for what's right. I'll stand up for what's right. I will use this strength I've given to be a light. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. Change the world.
We'd like to invite the community to turn to page 371 in the prayer book. Page 371 is our opportunity of thinking about those who are ill on this night, those whom we know and those whom we don't know, people who are part of this community and part of other communities near and far. As we think of them, we offer our prayers of healing and wholeness. There are uncertainties about how people heal within themselves or through the work of the divine. But we do know certainly that when someone knows that a community such as this one is praying on their behalf, that their own healing powers increase. And they in fact can do better because of the prayers that we offer here, because of the support we offer here. We have almost 100 people on our continuing Temple Beth El healing list. Some people who might even be sitting in this community tonight might be on that list, either by the fact that someone offered them that opportunity or they put themselves here on the list. But there are people whom we also are thinking of who may not be on the list, and so we now will offer in a moment our own chance to offer those whom we think of, people who need our prayers of healing and wholeness. If you know of someone and you would like to share that name with our community, we now offer you the opportunity of doing so anytime you like.
Bill Williams.
Miriam Beich, Ruth Greenbelt.
Our wounded warriors.
Are there others we should be thinking about tonight? Aloud and in our hearts, we name those facing illness and pain. And tonight, as always, we join our prayers to the prayers of all who love them. Page 371 in the middle.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make renewal of body, the renewal of the Spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We would like to invite Gerald Swarsensky, son of Rabbi Manfred Swarsensky, to join us on the bima to help lead with us and to help the cantor Nami lead us, our congregation, in the Kiddush for this Erev Shabbat. You can find the text for the Kiddush on page 123 in the prayer book. So we invite you to turn to page 123.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'rasavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, be'ahava uvratzon hinivanu. Zikaron le'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh, zecher l'siat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodeshecha, v'ahava uv'ratzon, hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-shabbat l'chaim.
Our service now continues on page 586. We continue on 586 with Aleinu. At the top of the page, we invite everyone to rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach Adon Hakol, Ateinu Lahu Bereshit, Shekodesh Shamayim ve'yosed haaretz, u'moshav yikaro, Hashamayim ima'al, u'shlimat kuzo v'govei Elohim, u'Eloheinu he'od, va'anachnu morim, u'mishtachavim morim, lifnei melech, alchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch.
Please be seated. We continue together at the top of page 589. Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. O may all, created in your image, become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever
and ever.
Page 591.
V'ne'ema, v'haya Adonai, v'melech ha'ol ha'aretz, hayom ha'hu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo
Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may the memory of the righteous always be a blessing. As we offer Kaddish for those family members and friends we remember in our hearts at this time, we also note this week again the anniversary of Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, a night of violence and pogrom that destroyed life and stole hope. Yet still we survive to recall the victims of Holocaust, to say Kaddish for those for whom there is no one to offer these prayers, and to renew the aspiration that we have as a people, that what we stand for and the principles of goodness will persevere. May our recollection of the terrors of that night of terror remind us of our sacred responsibility to nurture and nourish Jewish life today. Let memory guide and sustain us, and let our passions be for acting and advocating for the freedoms for which we search. On this night, these are those who we remember, whose Yartzeiten occur. If you are present tonight in mourning or in observing a Yartzeit, we invite you to rise as the name of your loved one is recited, and then you'll be joined by the whole congregation as together we offer the Kaddish. These are those whom we've taken into our hearts with our own. We remember on this night Bernard M. Burke, Thomas Bernstein, Mary Blockstein, Ernest Budwig, Bessie Berman, Marshall Butler, Samuel Denmark, Lester Druck, Anatoly Dvoskin, Harry E. Fields, Frank Goldrosen, Nathan Josephson, Tilly R. K. Baker, Martin Cadis, Bernard Katz, Bobby Kunin, Heinz E. Loffer, Alan Mastbaum, Louis Walter Mayron, Norman Morgenstein, Samuel Nager, Barbara Palmer, Sylvia Marie Robertson, Judson Scheibel, Meyer L. Schwartz, Nadine Shapiro, Judith Siegel, Tamar Hameson Simpson, Jacob J. Siniko, Dr. Harlan Mark Smith, Rabbi Manfred E. Swarsensky, and William Wilson. There may be others whom we remember on this night, we members of this community, whose names did not appear on the Kaddish list, yet still we hold them in our hearts. And so if you have people whom you are remembering on this night, we invite you, if you would like, to offer their name to this community of consolation.
Charlotte Centerboy, Cindy Kaufman, Bill Jones,
Jeffrey Golden,
Others whom we are remembering on this night, Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be blessings in our hearts and the hearts and minds of all those who knew and loved them. Testifying to the faith, therefore, that binds the generations of our people together, we invite you to turn to page 598, and then we invite all to rise to recite the words of Mourner's Kaddish, thanking God for lives given to us and for the love that was shared. Yitgadal, Yitgadash, Shemei Ra, V'yalma Tivrach, Hirutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, V'slach Hayechon U'vyomechon, U'v'chayei Dechol Beit Yisrael, V'agala U'zman Kariv V'imru, Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Ve'alam U'almei Almayah. Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh. V'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei kedusha v'riku. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, Uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru. Amen. May God send peace to those who mourn and comfort those who remember on this night. and let us say amen. Amen. Please be seated. Our service is about to conclude, but before it does, we wanted to announce a few things to you. First of all, words of gratitude. First of all, thank you to my Bima partner, Cantor Jacob Nami, for offering music of the soul and great things from the spirit that he has in his heart. Thank you. In heart. Maybe you have more than one. I don't know. I want to thank our choir tonight, and I want to thank Ted Reinke for offering such beautiful instrumental music that again helped to stir the souls of all of us here tonight. Thank you all so very much. We would like to thank our Community Education Committee for pulling together this weekend, and I don't want to use that word lightly because really there are so many parts of this weekend when we welcome 6 or 7 different, seven, thank you. 8, did you say 8? 7. Oh, 7, all right. When we welcome 7 different important rabbis and leaders to these bimas that we have in our community. So we thank that committee and Carol Cantor. Where is Carol? There she is. Thank you, Carol. And to our Director of Lifelong Learning, Nicole Jar, for making these days and nights so beautiful. We would like to thank Gerald Swarsensky and Sharon Swarsensky Bilo and Paul Bilo for being with us this weekend. We so appreciate your presence with us tonight. We want to thank the sponsors of our Oneg Shabbat tonight, who are the TBE, Temple Beth El Sisterhood, the Women of Reformed Judaism, who just had their very 56th successful Foodorama, 54th Foodorama. Someone give me the right number? Somewhere in there, somewhere?
Since 1966.
Thank you. Since 1966, it's been our tradition, and so
On
you
the
can
bag that you get if you make it big enough order.
Thank you. That's the problem with not being here on the day. You don't see those things. But we thank the sisterhood for providing us our Oneg Shabbat tonight. Thanks to our wonderful staff here at Temple Beth El, who is really something wonderful to work with and a privilege to work with all my colleagues on all of staff. So we thank you for all of that. A few brief announcements. First of all, a COVID announcements. We do encourage the wearing of masks if you are comfortable doing so, but we also encourage people to respect those who make the choice of whether to wear a mask or not. We understand the risk as adults. We understand the situation in which we live, and so please be respectful of choices that people make in our community. We certainly recommend appropriate age boosters and vaccinations against COVID-19 at this time. Also, regarding contact tracing, if you are attending tonight and you receive a positive diagnosis or you test positive for COVID in the next 5 days, we request that you give us a call here at Temple, speak to Stephanie Kushner, our executive director, or someone here who can take that information, but she, of course, keeps the information confidential. But we will then reach out to people who were here tonight to let them know that someone here that night tested positive. There's a sign-in list on the round table in our foyer for just this purpose, to let us know that you were here and that you would like a call in case we find out that indeed someone here tested positive for COVID. Tomorrow morning and this weekend, we have some wonderful scheduled things for our Swarsensky weekend. Tomorrow morning at 9:30, we will have a Torah study and potluck brunch. We also will have a bat mitzvah, the bat mitzvah of Naomi Pizer, beginning at 10:30 in the morning. At 11:30 in the morning, there will be a Swarsensky Memorial Weekend panel, which is called Beyond the Bima, Rabbis Working Outside of the Synagogue. These days, somewhere around 50% of graduates of the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion work outside of synagogue life. That's both a blessing and a curse to all those concerned. But regardless, there are rabbis who are doing important work outside of the synagogue life, and my colleagues will be able to relate some of that to you tomorrow. On Sunday, November 13th, in addition to religious school being part of that day, at 9:45 in the morning, there is the annual brunch and panel, which is called American Judaism's Greatest Challenges, also again staffed by our women colleagues in the rabbinate. So we are inviting you to those things. I think for Sunday, are we open? Do we have reservations still open for Sunday?
For the panel.
For the panel. You can come to the panel, but you just can't eat. So, because we're really full. I mean, we have the blessing of people calling in late and for people letting us know, up until the last minute that they're coming. And we have a full brunch plate, but still come and hear the panel. It's going to be great. So, next Friday evening, Shabbat Midor Lador at 7:30. And next Saturday morning is our special Shabbat here at Temple Beth El when we offer Torah study at 9. We have Cafe Shabbat at 10 o'clock, and then Tfilat Shabbat at 10:30, which is our opportunity to worship together as a community with essentially lay-led and comfortable, warm, informal worship here in our sanctuary that will be reconfiguring to be a very comfortable circle-like kind of thing. So please join us for that, and for every third Saturday in the month following. Please join us for those things. At 6 p.m., by the way, next Sunday, a week from this coming Sunday, at 6 p.m. on the 20th of November, we begin here an observance which we are fortunate to be hosting in our community, and that is the Transgender Day of Remembrance. In the past year, there are many transgender individuals who passed away or died or were murdered because of who they are and whom they chose to love. And so we, in this community of Madison, here at Temple Beth El, we are offering and we are hosting both an exhibition hall, if you will, of organizations that reach out to the transgender community. And at 7 p.m. that night, we offer a service in our sanctuary for the whole Madison community. Interfaith, it is an interfaith service. So please join us for that service of remembrance that night. Any other announcements that we want to make tonight or need to make tonight? I hope I've made all the appropriate gratitude remarks for this weekend. Yes, Sue.
The Judaica shop is open and overflowing with Hanukkah merchandise, so be sure and stop in and visit us. We would love to see you.
So to make sure that people online hear that, because I think that's important for the folks online as well, that
Sunday mornings during religious school.
the Judaica shop is open Sunday mornings during religious school. It's overflowing with Hanukkah merchandise. Please come and buy. Don't buy it online. Buy it here. Buy it here. It helps the sisterhood.
Support the many charities that our sisterhood supports.
Thank you. Thank you. We conclude our service. Look in the supplement on page 6 again for our closing song.
We're going to come back to, I'm going to ask my friends, choir, rise. And I would say, if at any point you feel called to rise, you're welcome to as well. But I'll leave that up to where your heart is at in this moment.
I've been given every day. I have a voice, my voice is powerful, my voice can change the world. I have a voice, my voice is powerful, my voice can change the world. Change the world.
I will give of myself.
I will give of myself.
I will reach out my hand.
I will reach out my hand.
I will use this heart I've given to take a stand.
I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. Change the world.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asanu
powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. Change the world.
I will fight for the truth.
I will fight for the truth.
I'll stand up for what's right.
I'll stand up for what's right.
I will use this strength I've been given
To be a light. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. Change the world.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.